Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends share music with each other, an album at a time, like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, and here with me is my quartet, my quorum, my team, my squad. We've got David.
Nobody gives a shit about your insights on a fishing game. Shut up.
We've got Matt.
I for one, my biggest problem is a couple is two. That's the definition of a couple.
Or three or four. I think four
No,
max.
that's a few. That's a handful. A couple is two.
Yes.
You buy a coupler.
Yes. And we've got Brett.
I'm just upset that they didn't have any panfish at all, because what if I want to catch those mad slabs and bring it in by volume, like hit a school with my spider rig, and like really catch them by, I have to change the regulation, but
Yes. All right.
But I'm leaving my opinions to myself and not on a Steam review.
Yes. we'll have fishing breakers, line breakers. Later.
Another podcast I won't be on.
Exactly. We're talking about music now. We're talking about an album, as we do every week. We're talking about an album that Brett has chosen. Brett, what have you gotten for us this week?
That introduction is terrible for the album that I'm bringing. I'm bringing one of the guitar albums for jazzy folks or people who like to see the exercise of blues, Kenny Burrell's Midnight Blue.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about expectations on this album. David, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Academic jazz. I had a passing familiarity with Kenny Burrell, and I was aware of his, not just his playing, but the fact that he is a teacher by trade. And I expected to use a common phrase here on this podcast, homework, but in a very literal sense. This was going to be music that musicians listened to listen to what's going on, and not necessarily jazz that you can vibe to.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Brett and I have had multiple conversations about the song Midnight Blue from this album, to the point where I actually bought the album not from half price, but from Amazon.
Oh, the whole price.
Yeah. And so I've listened to it, over the years, sometimes the whole way through, sometimes, it'll just pop up on shuffle. But so because of that, I was expecting some guitar played in a somewhat bebop style with the highs rolled off.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't familiar with the album or the music, but I was looking forward to what was to come. I figured it was going to be some Eat Your Veggies jazz, but I wasn't mad at that. I was looking forward to just enjoying it and kind of experiencing it and having it be in my head and listening to the different aspects of it and learning a little bit more. So I was looking forward to it.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah,
it was not Alan Holdsworth.
Yeah, no. But Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
This is for the past few albums when we've talked about blues albums, and I said there's a lot of different ways that you can blues, and a lot of ways that people don't think of the blues. And the blues goes back. I was just talking about how blues was played on a banjo a lot. There are times before amplifiers and guitars were doing the blues. So this is one little segment that is this is one of those albums that you'll hear people who play blues guitar will listen to this album to it's entry level to outside of the blues into jazz, because there's definitely some jazz. There's like a straight up bebop going on in this of the era, and the opening track, like, you know, we'll get into that. There are different influences of 60s jazz that's going on in through here, but like this is a big old file of cool blues licks, or not necessarily blues licks, but they're like, you can like copy and paste if you listen to this as a guitarist and you hear a thing, like there are so many little phrases and little licks, and the way that the licks are played underneath like chords in a way, it's sort of a way that this is the way that I try to play music. So when I play guitar, it's not overly gymnastics of the guitar. It's not even like a flawless display of guitar, but it's a lot of whole note bends, a lot of licks that go where in jazz you'd have a lot of runs. This has more of your bends. Instead of slides on the octaves, you have even more bends. They go into bends and hammer offs and pull offs, and like, but then also it does some of the other stuff. Along with it, you have an upright bass with none of them frets on it, not one, and it does some of that. And you get in the recording, like with jazz instruments, going back the further, the less you're going to get with the high end of the cymbals and the low end of the bass and the drums. And you can hear the bass on this. You can hear the hand percussion on this. You can hear the cymbals on this. And it's about as old as of an album where you can reliably hear all of that. And I wanted to bring that because you can hear everything, and it's mixed really well. And like it's got good horn. I don't know how to describe horn, but when it comes to guitar, this is like, of the era of the style of blues, this is probably this is one of the standard albums that are part of your full healthy breakfast.
Mm-hmm. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album musically as a really well remastered album from 1963. There is a lot of empty space simply because of the time, but the band does everything at a high level, and you can't really argue with that. The songs are fine for the time and what they are. I think everyone's kind of playing jazz by numbers, but you can't really say it's jazz by numbers given that this was at a time period where the numbers were still being pieced together in the puzzle to make jazz by numbers. I think that Kenny Burrell shows himself to be a solid band leader. He knows when to let things happen, when he needs to make things happen. I think that here and there are points where it does swing, but there are also times where it does not. And I believe that it was the great Duke head coach Mike Krzyzewski, who said, it don't mean much if it ain't got that touch. And there is some touch all over this album.
Mm-hmm. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
Ba.
I don't know what that means.
I'm sure.
I was about to make a poop joke, and I'm just gonna stop.
No, like as kind of the title of the album implies, there's a lot of blues on this album, and it's all very well done. It's in the jazz style of blues. A lot of it is 12-bar blues. It's one of those things that I've listened to this album quite a bit, but I never took the time to really think and analyze it thoroughly. And once I did, I realized that's a 12-bar blues. That's a 12-bar blues. I think that might be a minor 12-bar blues. And there's another 12-bar blues. Okay. That said, it's not bad. like that fact is not bad. Uh, there's a lot of humbucker on the neck pickup with the highs rolled off, which I always come back to that as a complaint, just about a lot of kind of jazz bebop guitar in general, just because I like a little more variety in my guitar tone. But also there is hand percussion, specifically congas, if as the liner notes call them. And something I just kind of found interesting was music nerd alert. A lot of he reverts to this descending minor pentatonic a lot, and that was another thing that I hadn't specifically noticed before, but this time, oh, it's in that song, and it's in that song, and it's in that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bass thing that you would describe on this album is, yeah, it's that like you described, the blues form of jazz music. It is what born what a lot of the other stuff. It is the style when it was a really kind of like coming together, and it is pretty academic, and it's definitely something like it's like it's like going back and reading The Contender, but not in school, like or whatever your assigned reading was in your high school or middle school or whatever. It is, but it's not a bad thing. It's just it's nice. It's well made. It's really cool to like go back and study what this was, and watch or listen to a extremely talented jazz guitarist in his prime, like doing his thing, but not in like a flashy way, just like a feel good way. Like there's some like fun, like intimate moments. There's nice intimate sounds, and it's just like especially some moments where it's just like just Kenny Burrell with little else.
Hey, Petey, how about them vocals? What did you think of the vocals?
Yeah, no vocals, but the vocality
Yes.
Of it all was still nice.
The vocaliciousness.
Yeah,
There were words being said, but in the language of guitar.
exactly. And
you can hear words in the language of people being said in the background in some of the songs.
yeah,
Really
Hey, that's it ain't a jazz album if you're not getting a room recording of like
Yeah.
a squeaky board on the floor, or like
Yeah.
a guy asking about coffee in the background.
yeah.
Like,
But yeah, Brett, let's get into some of the key tracks. What will be some of the key tracks for you?
well, I mean, this album opens up with some hands. You can hear those hands smacking like calf skin. Like you can hear the hand percussions from, like I just like I like every time that I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons and somebody's pulling out their drum to play. I forget which character that is.
Who's to say?
There's like this. There's something about, again, like you go back long enough, like it's hard to record a lot of, like, drums are hard, like especially hand percussion and like cymbals and anything that like snares. They're difficult to record, like in 1960s equipment era, and like to be able to hear it, and it's really really great. And like when the guitar comes in, like, yes, it is a humbucker and it's doing that thing, but it is riding right on the edge of breaking up in a like a good blues amp would be doing, or somebody who wants to have the most headroom but not want to break up, but like still, but like when you have it like right there on the edge of it, it's starting to break up and getting overdriven and dirty sounding. Like the difference between it being smooth and clean and being like, broken up and dirty is how hard you play with your right hand. adding another layer of dynamics that I enjoy with this kind of music, where like it's you need to say the quiet part quiet and the loud part loud, and never mix the two up, or like you aren't really jazzing, you're just bluesing. And like there's also a great version of Stevie Ray Vaughan doing a cover of this song. If you want to hear him play this song halfway through and then Stevie Ray Vaughan for a while, and it's pretty cool. Midnight Blue is it's the belle of the ball for me. It's like I adore that song. I have the licks stored in my brain. This is not something that I sit down and I play, because there are some weird things that I have not been able to make sound not like gibberish, and on it some of the licks sound like gibberish to me sometimes. But like if you're into noodling blues licks, like in like let's say you're sitting around with a bunch of people and they're just playing like a 12 bar with people. If you steal like 2 or 3 of the licks that aren't just straight up minor pentatonic licks and throw them into your bag of guitar licks, you'll turn some heads, because they're not that different. It's just, a half step here and skip a string there and octave slide instead of there. But like it is a demonstration of how much you can do with a guitar playing the blues, but do it in a way that's not like, that kind of, screaming. And Kenny's sound, like this strays away from the blues, and it's a bop. This is your runs, your slides, and you really get to see the shared like ingredients that go into the dishes of blues and jazz. They are not that different. And some would say rock and roll, but we don't know what rock and roll is anymore, because that thing kind of changed in the 60s too. But like it really shows you, and I like this album as a way, and this song kind of brings it to me, is like you're bringing together people that, like, if you can get down with like Stevie Ray Vaughan like ripping some Hendrix, you might also like Stevie Ray Vaughan ripping some song off of this, which is like that's a bridge that carries people from like popular music closer and closer to what people find jazz difficult. And like, the Flintstones theme is another, like, it's jazz. It's awesome. Jazz is cool. Like, it doesn't have to be like, I'm scared and somebody's making all these noises. And Kenny sound, like, it's tight. It comes back around. Just like every song on here's got an awesome turnaround, by the way. Steal those turnarounds. They are not lazy turnarounds. But those are really the highlights for me. If I will also say that whenever there was a saxophone, the saxophone was recorded in a way, or you could hear the mouth, like it was recorded in a way that was like the remaster. You could kind of tell what was going on.
Exactly like that, folks.
I mean, it was not a dry sound. I'll tell you that much.
Moist. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Saturday Night Blues. The saxophone in that one is the one where Brett has said several times on this podcast that the saxophone is the lead guitar of brass instruments. And I've said on several occasions that I love the saxophone, and that's where it really shined for me. Also, the title track, pretty much all of the things that Brett said, copy paste, especially after tracks 2 and 3 were a bit subdued. And also Kenny's sound. That was the track on this album that I was looking for. I was looking for a song that had some swing, and this was the one. Kenny's sound.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Chitlin's Con Carne. I like this one because it starts out with kind of just drums, bass and drums, but then the congas come in, and that kind of tells you this isn't going to be a typical jazz blues album. You're in for something a little bit different. It's something that I just find myself attuning to more and more. I'm pretty sure at 4 minutes and 58 seconds, there is a disagreement or confusion on how to end the song, because you can hear one person going for a turnaround. Not everybody's going for it, and I always find that kind of fun to pick out.
That's jazz.
That is yes.
That's jazz.
They wouldn't make it like that today.
That's just jazz being jazz.
Mhm.
I enjoy it.
Yes, and
Yeah.
on Mule, it's just I always admire the people who are able to just keep their guitar turned up and play softly, because this one, case in point, you can just really hear the pick attack, and because of that, for me, it just really I don't know, it just has this extra bit that you just this extra bit of dynamic that you can tell is there. Midnight Blue.
Extra bit of personality, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, like, if you're playing like that and you screw up, you're broadcasting it to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the dynamic that you can tell it's there even if he's not using it, I guess. I don't know. Midnight Blue, it's a groovy song. It's one of the ones in a minor key, which is always good. And yeah, this one, I never took the time to fully learn it. I still would like to at some point, but it has a lot of really nice kind of minor blues things, but kind of like Brett said, it's just this really nice cross of jazz and blues, and because of that, yeah, I don't know, it's a good, I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's neat, isn't it? Yeah,
It's
it's real
neat.
cool.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Too good.
Certified dank.
Yeah. G baby, ain't I good to you? This one I liked because I always I kind of have an affinity for the so-called jazz standards, and I believe this one falls into that category. Just a nice chord progression. It is on the mellower side, but you also get to really, as someone who has been spending some time learning more jazz and bebop, etc., this is a good one to kind of, it's slow enough that you can hear all the licks easy enough, and it's slow enough that they're interesting but not so slow that they're boring, and you can still hear them and everything.
Yeah.
It's transcribable at full speed is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
Unlike Kenny's sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'd echo every sentiment on like Midnight Blue and on pretty much all the tracks you guys mentioned. I would say I enjoy the name Chitlins con Carne. Chitlins con Carne. That's just a nice idea. And it's a good song. It just it starts with some really nice hand percussion, like you guys said, and it just builds well.
So on Chitlins con Carne as like an idea, just imagine the kind of food that was hanging around in these studios when you had like the Latin percussionist coming together with like the artist. Well, you have a man from Detroit. Like there is nobody that comes from a place where there is not a cultural meal, and you blend them together. Like it's Bossa Nova is not my favorite, but it brought together so many people that like, yeah. Like Chitlins con Carne.
Yeah.
Edible jazz.
That's
Yes.
right.
Not to be
I would
confused
say
with jazz edibles.
No, jazz edibles are a different.
That was that Grateful Dead album that we talked about.
Yes. That was Panama Red. That was that was something else.
Panama Red.
What about blue?
I will say give a shout out to Soul Lament, just because like it was just a nice like somber chill, like just Kenny and his guitar kind of like just hanging out, intimate performance, and I just really enjoyed that. But yeah, other than that, I'd echo basically everything you guys said. Now let's bring it back around the horn, talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
On my first listen of this album, I wasn't really feeling it. I needed to put this album aside for a little bit and come back to it. When I did, it was after a day of work, and it hit me in the right place after that. I would almost say that it was very blue collar in that regard, in that it was the right album after a hard day of work. Maybe not necessarily one to swing and jam out to. I think that this is a prototypical music for musicians album. There is plenty to geek out over. I'm not necessarily sure how much there is to enjoy if you're not someone who's just really deep in the weeds of guitar and jazz. Of the actual playing of the songs with the things that you hold in your hands to make the sounds come out in a specific way. But I think that it was generally a good collection of songs that was played well, that could have used a little more bounce for a jazz album, or a blues album for that matter.
More bounce to the ounce.
Perhaps jump blues.
Yes. Matt.
Favorite monk magazine.
Yes. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
It's a great album. I mean, it's probably not workout music. I don't think you're gonna get any PRs on your deadlifts with this. But I mean, if you're just looking for something to kind of relax to, or put on in the background, not excluding listening intently to study it, but if you were having like a small dinner party or something, this would be a great album to put on and show everybody how sophisticated you are.
Yes.
But
where you have everyone sitting around your open concept kitchen entertainment area,
your rumpus room, in your den with your recessed couch in the center of the room.
Pit. Yes.
Yeah. Everything's made out of formed walnut.
and I don't mean that to pull it down to the level of being played at dinner parties. Just that it is a possibility that it's very diverse, not diverse. It's a very multi-use album, and it's just one of the many uses.
Yes.
Yes.
Multi-tool of an album.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, studyable, very academic jazz music and blues style music. It is very good background music, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a nice foundation for a lot of things, and a nice foundation for understanding a lot of things on certain genres of music, and it's good to visit it and decide, hey, if you want to come back often or be a regular of this style of music, you can, and if you don't, that's fine, you can move on to other things, but it's good to visit it and understand what it is, which is a really well made classic album of bluesy jazz. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
So I've heard that your favorite rapper's favorite rapper is E40. And I kind of think that this is an album that your favorite guitarist probably thinks that this is a fun album, for certain reasons. There are people that are more respected at reviewing albums than any of us in this room. that say very, very good things about this album. So like, but personally, like this album inspired me to think of jazz as less of a like doing math with sound waves using a piece of wood with some strings on it, and more like, oh, it's just blues, but with like, you know, a suit jacket on. Sometimes a brown jacket on, sometimes with a leather jacket on, sometimes with you know, your seersucker. But at the end of the day, it all came from the same place. And we appropriated that shit so hard. But this is something that this is an album that I never have to listen to again because it lives in my brain. But when it comes on, like, I still find something in there. And I'm broken, and I can never listen to music without like listening for the sprawling or the squeak or the people talking in the background. So your mileage may vary, but for me, you know, double good housekeeping, seal of approval, certified dank. This is one of my top of the stack records.
Yes. Front of the crate status.
Yes, I get my 2x4s that are on cinder blocks. I've got my Midnight Blue shoved right in the front next to my laser disc of Clerks.
Yes.
It's first in the playlist, kids. First in the playlist.
Exactly.
Ask your parents about crates.
Yes. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Kenny Burrell's Midnight Blue. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to
Sim fishing? Oh.
No. That comes later. That's the after show. That's Record Breakers After Dark.
Oh my.
We get to our haiku reviews. Speaking of appropriating. Where we sum it all up in poetic form with the 575. Just for fun. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
It's blue collar jazz. Good for a relaxing vibe. Needs a bit more swing.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your haiku?
Bebop blue guitar, musicianship all over. Great to unwind to.
Mm-hmm. My haiku. Feel good guitar jazz. Great for snapping your fingers. Eat your jazz veggies.
But veggies, when cooked and prepared well, are very, very good. Like this album.
Roasted.
Exactly.
Little olive oil.
Little olive oil.
Salt and pepper. You're good.
Maybe a little crack of
salt
salt if you're feeling
a little
fancy.
crack of salt, a little crack of pep, and I do mean a crack of salt.
Crack of pep.
Because you got to get your sea salt and crack it over. You know, do you think you only got to crack? You think only peppercorn is good cracked in the cracker? The salts get that nice feel. Brett, what is your haiku?
Okay, I've okay. Fantastic display. Many things to do with blues. One of my favorites.
You can also just do flaky salt. That's true.
I mean, as a cracker, let me tell you, the opening up that your fine Himalayan or Persian blue can really bring together a nice display.
Or maybe some nice Malden smoked salt.
Yeah.
Hawaiian black.
I gotta actually get
Just remember to season your food.
Hey, you know what?
Right. Goddamn right.
If it's got molasses in it, you're probably going in the right direction.
Yes.
There's no shame in using a seasoning blend. If that's what you need to do, it's what you got to do.
Hey, that fajita mix is a crutch, but it's your crutch.
Exactly.
Embrace it.
I don't judge. I don't judge if you use seasoning. If you're unseasoned, that's when I judge.
Yes.
Exactly. But yeah. Speaking of seasoning, those are our thoughts on Kenny Burrell's Midnight Blues. We sprinkled that up on your podcast feed just liberally. You can find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. You can find the links to the podcast, the playlist on the podcast show page at recordbreakerspodcast.com. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by Matt. Matt, what have you got for us next week?
Well, this one may in fact not be on the playlist unless you have better Spotify searching skills than I do, and you very well may. I will be bringing the Sextet of Orchestra USA with their album Theater Music of Kurt Weill.
Nice. So that's going to be a fun episode next week. But that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Matt is at MRickW. Brett is at HibbityBread, HIBBITYBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is the email. Rebelli.net for listen to other shows, for the show notes and all the links and RSS feeds and things like that. Rebelli TV on YouTube and on Twitch, where we stream Record Breakers on Wednesdays. We also do D&D on Tuesdays. From now on, without a cat in the background, because the little kitty.
The internet loves cats.
That kitty
it
found its
blended in with the Sirenscape.
Yes. That kitty luckily found its forever home, hopefully. So
As a bass
good, happy
fisherman,
ending.
surprisingly.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, D&D with Through the Tomes on Tuesdays, Astroneer on Thursdays. With me, Brett, Daisy, doing the space trucking and whatnot, and who knows what else we'll do if I find the time and the energy. But at least we got those, so you can follow the Twitch channel. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Find us where you find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Rebelli Podcast, baby.
Dal biche yo janiya, bichero yap.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.